Zamo. What are you doing?
Well, I told my dad that we want to set up a network here, so he gave me some leftover bits and pieces from the shop.
So, do you know what all that stuff does and how to put it together?
No, we're going to need some help. I wish Murray was here.
Woohoo! Hey
Murray!
guys, nice to see you. We'll have a look at that today, shall we?
By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain how the components of a LAN communicate and design a network for a specific context.
So, we've got all these network devices and cables. What else do we need to create a network?
Well, I haven't had a look to see exactly what you've got there, but I suspect that you'll have the components for an Ethernet network. Now, can you guys remember what essential components all Ethernet networks have in common?
Well, I remember that a network is made up of nodes, and at each node is a computing device, such as a desktop computer, a printer, or a notebook.
Yes, and every node has a network interface card with a unique MAC address.
And what else is required?
Well, we'll need a medium to connect these nodes to each other. For an Ethernet network, cables are used, but the medium could be formed by radio or infrared waves.
Yes, but we also said we needed network hardware, such as a switch, hub, or router, and software to control network traffic.
Well done, guys. You've recalled all the essential components of an Ethernet network. But these are the essential components of all networks too. Now, every network needs to have these components. It needs more than one node. It needs network hardware, which includes devices such as a switch, hub, or router. Network software, which is either built into the operating system or as a separate application called the Network Operating System, or NOS. The NOS coordinates the exchange of information between nodes in the network. And finally, we need a medium or path from one computer to another for the information to travel along.
So, Murray, how do we get our network up and running so I can chat to my friends on Facebook?
Patience, Morwa. You still need to learn more about networks before setting one up in here. For instance, you need to know about network topologies.
That sounds complicated.
Not really. It's basically about planning a network. Network topology is the study of the arrangement of the components of a network. It's the mapping of the components. And these components are arranged according to their physical and virtual topology.
What does that mean?
I thought you might ask that, so I brought these along to demonstrate how it works. Now, these are house plans, and on it you can see where the rooms are, where the walls are, the doors are, the windows, and so on and so on. But a diagram showing where computers, printers, switches, and cables are physically located is referred to as the physical topology. And the virtual topology is the arrangement of the components according to their importance. Each device in a LAN has one or more links to the other devices. And it's the mapping of these links and devices onto graph paper that creates a geometrical shape showing the physical topology.
I'm still not sure I understand virtual topology.
It works in much the same way as family members communicate with each other. In other words, like family members, the components are arranged according to their position of responsibility. What machine is responsible for what task, which is the more important, and has more rights, and so on. Likewise, the mapping of the flow of data between the devices shown is the virtual or logical topology of the network.
So let me get this straight. Basically, a network topology is the shape of a network created by plotting the arrangement of the components according to how they are physically connected or how data flows between them.
Right! Network topology is the physical or real and the logical or virtual interconnections between network devices. But one point to remember is that although the physical and logical topologies can be identical, they can also be different.
But when my dad sets up a network, he only seems to use the star topology.
That's because the Ethernet star is the most widely used of all the network topologies, and it tends to be the most reliable. In this type of layout, each workstation, including the server, is connected directly to a switch by its own cable. And this layout is normally used in schools and offices. The advantages of a star network are that it's reliable in that if one connection fails, it doesn't affect other users. There are very few data collisions as each workstation has its own cable to the server. And it provides good security as no workstation can interact with another without going through the server first. But the disadvantages are, it's the most expensive network layer to install because of the amount of cables needed. Installing the network usually needs an expert to set it up, as extra hardware such as hubs and switches may be needed. And if the server crashes or stops working, then nobody can access their files or use the network. Now, although the star topology is the most widely used, other ways of connecting computers includes token ring architecture or bus topology.
Well, what else do we have in here?
What does that do?
Well, it's a hub, isn't it?
Yep. Basically, a hub is a box that's used to gather groups of PCs together at a central point, as we saw with the star topology. But it's rapidly being replaced by the network switch or switching hub. Now, like an ordinary hub, the network switch or switching hub connects network segments. But it's more advanced technology in that it has ports of different speeds, allowing for faster connections at higher speeds, yet still interacts with a 10 megabits per second system. Also, it stores the addresses of all the devices that are directly or indirectly connected to it on each port. Unfortunately, the one big disadvantage with all cable networks is that they can carry only one data packet at a time. So if you've got two or more computers who want to place data onto the network at exactly the same time, a data collision is likely to take place.
But there must be something that takes care of that.
There's something called network protocols, which I don't want to go into detail right now, as we'll be looking at them in a later lesson. But briefly, network protocols are the rules used to govern the transfer of information across the network. So, they manage data collisions by declaring data unusable and forcing the two computers to resend their data packets at slightly different times. But using network protocols alone to avoid data collisions only works on small networks with a few computers online carrying light loads. The small delays caused by these data collisions are hardly noticeable. But if we've got 100 PCs and they all share the same network and all want to send their data packets at the same time, there's likely to be thousands of data collisions per second. And as you can imagine, all these small collisions add up to one big slowdown and waste a lot of valuable time.
But doesn't a network switch prevent data collisions?
Yes, Samuel, it does. A network switch prevents data collisions by taking each data packet as it comes in and examining its destination address. Then, it creates a direct connection between the machine sending the data and the machine receiving it. Okay, guys, question time. What's the one essential component of networking that we haven't looked at so far?
I know, it's the physical pathway that we use to send the data.
The what?
The cabling.
I'm impressed.
I know, I learned that while working with my dad.
And what's the most common type of cabling used?
UTP.
Aha, and what does it stand for and why is it so popular?
UTP stands for unshielded twisted pair, but I have no idea why it's so popular.
Now, unshielded twisted pair cable, or UTP, is used to connect devices in a local area network. It's made up of 4 parts of cables twisted together. Can you see them over there? And every few centimeters, the cables are twisted with a different pair. There's one big disadvantage with UTP. Signals carried through these cables can be affected by radio or electromagnetic interference, or EMI. Now, electromagnetic waves are all around us and are produced by all types of electrical devices. These waves can interfere with the electrical signals carried in the cables. Now, you've probably seen this type of interference before. If you place an electric fan close to a computer monitor and turn the fan on, you'll see the monitor flicker.
I've noticed that there's a strange sound on my speakers just before my cell phone rings. Is that another example of EMI?
That's another good example of EMI. But To overcome the problem of electrical interference, a different version of unshielded twisted pair cable was developed. And this cable is called shielded twisted pair, or STP. And in these cables, there is very limited interference. So, apart from electromagnetic interference, there are 3 other weaknesses experienced on communications channel, and these are attenuation, crosstalk, and eavesdropping. So, any idea what these terms mean?
I think I have an idea about crosstalk and eavesdropping, but I have no idea what attenuation means.
Me too.
Well, attenuation is actually not too difficult to explain. So, imagine you were standing on a sports field next to someone speaking through a megaphone. If you move further away from the source of the sound, what do you think you would notice?
Well, that's easy. The loudness of the sound would decrease.
And that's exactly what attenuation is. Attenuation describes the process where a signal loses its strength as it travels long distances along a cable. So what do you think crosstalk is?
I know, crosstalk is like when everyone speaks at the same time and no one hears what I want to say.
Okay, whoa. That was a perfect example of crosstalk. Morwa, what was your description?
Crosstalk is like what happens in class sometimes when everyone speaks at the same time and no one hears what I want to say.
And yours, Zamo?
Isn't it when I'm trying to talk to someone over the phone and my brother is busy making a noise in the background with his friends?
Well done, both of you. I'm so impressed. Now, crosstalk is where 2 or more signals disrupt each other. The signals become confused and cross over each other. Now, in a network, crosstalk can cause errors, noise, difficulties in sending data, and a loss of packets or network data. The last weakness on our list is eavesdropping.
Oh, that's a really easy one. My younger brother is so nosy and always tries to listen in when I'm talking to my friends. Oh.
That's right, Morwa. Now, eavesdropping is when other people can listen into, monitor, and examine someone's information without permission.
But doesn't optical fiber cabling get rid of some of these weaknesses?
Spot on, Zamo, it does. And that's one of the main reasons why it's being used more and more. And another reason is that compared to other forms of cable, like these 2, it allows for transmission over longer distances and at higher bandwidths or data rates. Now, optical fiber has a glass or plastic fiber core that carries light along its length, allowing signals to travel along the core with less loss and without being affected by electromagnetic interference. Plus, it also supports very high transmission rates. Another advantage of this type of cable is that it's thin and lightweight, so it can be used in very cramped spaces. But its one big disadvantage is that it's relatively complicated to install and configure.
So what kind of network can we put in here?
Well, some of the most popular types of home networks are Ethernet and wireless.
So when can we set ours up?
Well, there are still a couple more things we need to do first. For example, we need to install a network interface card into this computer and get it network ready. But before that, we need to look at wireless technology so that we can decide whether to choose a cable or a wireless network. But you know what? We'll leave that for our next lesson. So now I want you to look at today's task. A young entrepreneur wants to start a cyber cafe that will allow the public access to the internet. He also wants to have space for learners to do research and share their projects. Design a network that includes 12 computers but has the potential to be extended. Make sure you give reasons for all your choices. Well guys, that's it for today. Don't forget, if you need to know more about IT, you can always log on to our website, which is www.mindset.co.za/learn. And don't forget, until next time, networking keeps the world at your fingertips.